Welcome back to another Dimension software video. I'm Ben, you're awesome, and today we're going to react to probably the most sought after question in the industry. How much does it cost to build a mobile app in 2021? No, seriously, I'm asking you, because I don't fucking know. Roll it. Look, the app dev process isn't binary. And if you think you're gonna build the next big startup platform miraculously in 4 months, exit and become the next billionaire god, well, you'll find yourself probably twirling your thumb up your own ass. Unless, of course, you're into that kind of thing. But in all seriousness, it's an evolution just like everything else in life. Some people can afford to skip the line, get ahead quickly, while others need to grind through the process a little bit more, stay lean, iterate faster, and figure things out more creatively. Point being, the reality of what actually happens under the hood of the app dev process, well, can look quite different than what we read on these tech blogs or hear from these gurus. And that is exactly why we're here, wanting to educate people just like yourself on this topic, deciphering the truth from these claims, and to provide value based on what it really looks like to build a software platform like a native mobile app. And make sure to stick around till the end, as I'm going to let you in on a little industry secret that may or may not blow your mind, may or may not get me fired, but full send for you Dimensionites. I fucking love ya! Alright, let's get into it. Alright, rip it.
So how much does it really cost to make an app? I think that question has been asked like 5 gazillion times, right? And I think anybody who's going to ask me that question again, I'm just going to refer to this video.
Put that back.
Right? And
did he put a voiceover of a woman agreeing with him in there? Oh boy, I am excited.
So in this video, I'm going to break down the exact strategy to calculate the cost of your app and launch it in the most cost-effective way. So stick around till the end of this.
Well, good, because we build them for a living, and I don't even know the answer to this question.
Video. And hey, if you're just meeting, my name is Arsh Singh. I'm a growth strategist for entrepreneurs, and I help you launch and scale your business using mobile apps. If you're watching this on YouTube and not yet subscribed, consider subscribing and hit the bell icon.
Hell, I'll leave a like.
Alright, so let's actually go to a whiteboard and break it down for you so that you get the maximum value out of this video. Okay, so let's dive into this right now. And I get this question all the time, that is, Arsh, how much does it cost to create an app? And I'll tell you right off the bat, there is no magic number. Instead, there are multiple factors at play to determine the cost of an app.
This is true. There is no blanket cost for app development, and many factors like the depth of the features needed to meet a certain business goal to the quality of engineers and designers that make the thing happen, right? They all play huge factors in either the success or the failure of a product launch. I'm interested to see how he breaks this down.
Entrepreneurs have spent anywhere from $5,000 to $500,000 in order to build an app that they want. But don't worry.
Oh, look, we've seen some of these projects on that lower side of that tier. Ain't nobody launching anything worthwhile for that price. I hope it gives context to those numbers.
Not all apps are created equal. Some are simple, costing less, and others are more complex. So how do companies calculate the cost of an app? Here is the typical way used by app dev companies to calculate how much your app is going to cost. And let's take a look at that right now. So the way they do it is by calculating, and please do not mind it's been a while since I've actually written something. Anyway, so they look at the cost and they look at the hourly.
It's been a while since I've written something. Maybe practice prior to recording the content? A little preparation never hurt. While you're at it, maybe some light research.
Effort, and multiply that with the hourly cost. So this is the formula that is typically used by most app dev agencies. One is that how many hours are they going to be spending on that specific feature in order to complete it, and then multiply that, what is their hourly cost.
Let me preface. with saying, while this is only a portion of the formula, because in addition to simply engineering and design time, there's other factors, like office rent, equipment and supplies, software programs, etc. They all play into this formula. We've, on the other hand, used this formula in the past until switching to a little bit more of an effective model that's helped us move in a much better direction. I'll touch on this later.
Let's take an example to break this down even further. Let's think that you have an app which has 5 core features in it. All right, so let's say feature 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is what the app dev companies would think of, is that how much time, how many hours would they be spending on each feature. So let's say that it's gonna take 50 hours to do the first feature, and it's gonna take 40 hours for the second one, 70 hours for this, 100 hours to do the fourth feature. Let's consider this is a complex one, and let's say 80 hours to do
Wait. But what constitutes a complex feature over a more simple one? Does simple equate to inexpensive? We found this to not be true. In fact, I would argue that simple is even more expensive because it actually requires an experienced designer and engineer to pull that off correctly. It's not an easy thing and an easy task to overcome.
Let's say 340. Yep. Let me write that a little better. So that's roughly, that's not even better. Anyways, so you get an idea, right? So
no,
it's 340.
That's not better, buddy.
Now, if we take two different companies and two kinds of hourly rates into account, then this is how much your app would cost to make.
Let me get this straight. So far, you're telling us you're just broad stroking these features 1 through 5 with zero basic feature breakdowns and explanations on how these dev shops get to these numbers? What? Come on, man. Break them down at least.
Let's take a look. So the company 1 is going to be charging, let's say, $50 an hour, and the company 2 is going to be charging $120 an hour. Now, considering that it's going to take 340 hours for your app to be built, let's take a quick look at that. So 340 into 50, it would cost you $17,000 if you go with the company number 1.
Again, but how? Okay, just keep watching.
Let's take a look at the company number 2, $40,800. So that's the company number 1 is going to charge you $17,000 to build your app. The company number 2 is going to charge you $40,800. And the reason for that is because their hourly rate, the hourly cost, is substantially different.
Guess the question I always come back to is, does this information help or hurt the storyline? Right here, in my opinion, is exactly the root of the problem with this level of misinformation from these kinds of industry leaders and gurus. Now, I'm not claiming, he's not saying he's a guru or industry leader. I get that. He's just attempting to show the world, the ignorant world, a little bit about the process. The only big critique here that I have is there's been zero context, right? You don't write a paper and leave out the sources or the experiences or, your case studies per se. What kinds of features take 40, 70, 100 hours? So far, this is just arbitrary math on a whiteboard. Bro, if I wanted a hot calculator lesson, I'd go hang out with Nancy Pie. Come on, man!
They're charging at $50 per hour and they're charging at $120 per hour. This is behind the scenes how they typically calculate the cost of your app.
So far, there's been nothing behind the scenes, man. And again, why do you think there is such a discrepancy in pricing? Now, I wasn't gonna go there, but fuck it. Most won't, I will. Maybe it has something to do with the quality of engineering and design over who the fuck knows what kind of toothpick, spaghetti having ass code you're about to pay for. Come on! Woo!
Right, so this is for a simple app which has 5 features.
And again, simple does not mean cheap.
You fucking donut.
A complex app might take roughly around, let's say, 1,500 hours for the development. And the cost for that would be, let's take a quick look at that as well. So 1,500 100.
Yay! More math.
With 50, that's 75K. Wow, that's a really bad writing. But anyways, gets the message across, right? So if you look at it for the second company, 1500 into 120, that's going to be 180K, right? So that's the difference for two kinds of apps, two kinds of companies. These are the numbers that you come up with. So with a complex app, it's going to cost you 75,000 with company 1, company A, and with company B, it's going to cost you $180,000. But now the question is that how do these companies define their hourly rates, right? So why is company A charging $50 while company B is charging $120? All right, so let's talk about some of the factors that impact the hourly rates. The clearest distinction between the hourly rates difference is going to be based on location. The cost will vary greatly if you go out to a company which is based out of US versus a company which is based out of Ukraine or India. You know, the average cost of a company which is based out of US is roughly around $150. If you go to Europe, that's going to cost roughly around $100.
I don't know his background. I don't know if he's ever managed to work with these other countries that he's supposedly quoting prices from. But Dimension Software, our experience, again, I'm always going to speak from my perspective, not judging him. Well, I am, because he put this out here, so we're going to tear it apart, as I would hope another individual with much higher credentials than myself would tear us apart. But Dimension Software, we've managed teams from Mexico, India, Ukraine, the Philippines, all over the world. And we can tell you for certain that it really depends on where you're hiring. Even within the United States, though. So while he's correct in a sense, the United States is massive, right? And there are great engineers in the Midwest here in the United States that go for $50 an hour. And it really depends on where you live. You know, for instance, California cost of living is higher. So here in Silicon Beach and up in north a bit in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, the prices shoot up for the engineers. They also attract the highest quality typically because that's where the big tech jobs are right now. This is changing. The landscape's changing massively. People are moving to Texas, Austin here in the United States. But look, man, again with the numbers, you know, let's talk the actual breakdowns. Let's see if he gets there. I'm rooting for him.
If you go to Australia, another 120 to 150 range. And in India, it is around, you know, starting anywhere from $20 to $80, depending on the quality.
That's the biggest point he's made yet, depending on the quality. Then he just gave us more arbitrary guesstimates on pricing from two separate countries without really any discussion as to why that is. Again, from our experience here, Dimension Software, you know, we've been in business since 1998. Until now, so over 20 years of designing and building software and managing teams from all over the world. I think the most important statement I can make here is you pay for what you get. A fundamentally sound team can write less code, providing more effective and efficient solutions, and nearly pixel perfect, fundamentally structured design that feels good, and you don't know why, it just is. It all plays into that psyche that we have a video, I'll link it here, on the laws of UX and UI and why design is so important. Going back to his statement, depending on the quality, the success or failure of this is usually due to a lack of access to high-level quality education and mentorship. Now, that's not to say there aren't phenomenal engineers and designers all over the world. Of course. I've lived in 400 other countries outside of the US, and I can tell you that they've made me a better human being, and I have so much love and respect for all cultures. I really do. But the truth here, from a business perspective, on what you're going to get from a general, just average outcome, we've seen code copy and pasted from two separate projects with no logic behind them, and guess what? Now they've just copied and pasted problems into the new project without even recognizing it. And the sad thing is, this happens all the time. It's a regular occurrence. And guess what? That new founder, that new entrepreneur that's so excited, they saved money, so to speak, they thought they did, and they're bringing their product to launch, and you've demoed for them, you being whoever's this outsourced engineering, and guess what? It crashes, it fails. And yes, there's bugs always, even on the highest levels of engineering and design. But guess what? You mitigate a lot of those issues, and you're structuring for growth and for the future by getting someone who can see the big picture and do the work for that, towards that goal. So sometimes, guess what? You just wasted 12 grand thinking you're saving 40. It's sad. See it all the time.
So a basic app in India might start at, let's say, $10,000, and a similar app in the US might be roughly at around 50K or 70K. The second factor which will impact the cost of your app is going to be the platforms, the number of platforms that you're considering for your product. If you're going with just Android or just iOS, the cost would be different. But if you're going for both the platforms, the cost will differentiate. It also differentiates from going with a native app versus a hybrid application. The third, the most important factor would be the number of features. Like we took a look at this, the example is that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 features, all of them had a different hourly effort based on which we calculate the total hourly effort, right? So the features that do you want people to sign up using a social platform or just an email or phone number or all of those factors? And then do you want to add any location-based services? Do you want to integrate a payment gateway? Would your app involve streaming, multiple languages, ads, chatting, or offline mode? So all of those factors will play a huge role in defining what's going to be the cost of your app. The number of features, the complexity, the number of integrations, they all play a major role in defining how much effort would be spent in building your app, and then in turn will actually impact the cost of your application. The fourth factor which plays a huge role is the design aspect of your application. Do you want a bare bones design, or do you want amazing, beautiful, modern, premium designs?
Of course people don't want bare bones design. Come on, man! The better question here is what level of design is needed for the desired outcome, the current desired outcome. Is the product a startup looking to launch an MVP, minimal viable product, and gain some kind of market traction and grow a user base? Well, then they most likely need to focus on a more functional design concept versus a purely aesthetic, right? Or if they're an established platform that's looking to improve the UX, user experience, and UI, well, then they probably most likely need to define the goals and pony up the cash and establish the branding. You can watch a video where we redesigned the UPS web app that's still live today, unfortunately, into a native experience, and why the native solution that we came up with is definitely a more effective solution to what they have produced on the App Store right now. Definitely worth a watch.
But they come at a price tag. The visual complexity leads to more effort both from backend and frontend, hence leads to your app being more expensive.
Visual complexity comes from both front end and back end. What an odd connection to make. Why is this odd, Ben? Well, because one, I've never heard this described in the same sentence together with design, and two, in layman's terms, from my understanding, the back end is where essentially data is stored and the front end is how it's displayed. So changing the style of a color on a button really isn't affecting the back end, it's produced in the front end. Expensive design is expensive because of its effectiveness in reaching that desired outcome for the client. I keep hammering this down your throats because it's just the truth. Maybe a certain, critical section of an app isn't clear and concise. An experienced UX UI designer will know exactly why and how to fix it. That experience comes at a cost, not whether it's taking time in the front end or back end.
The fifth factor is team and experience. The app dev agencies usually have different hourly rates based on different skill sets. Each member, like a developer, a tester, a designer, or a solution architect, will have different hourly rates. In a decent sized company, you'll typically have anywhere around 4, 5, up to 8 people working on a single project. These are the 5 major factors that impact the cost of your app, but you should also consider other factors like maintenance cost, infrastructure cost. It's important to make sure that you have a maintenance contract post-release so that your app is future-proof against any new updates by the operating systems, which might just leave your app useless if not handled properly.
This is true. It's a good idea to have some post-launch support and a contract set up to continually fine-tune the bugs and any issues. But typically, when you set up a contract with a design and engineering firm, you typically sign a contract that has about X number of weeks, maybe even months, depending on the size and scope of this project, that are already kind of baked into that initial contract. So you're already going to be supporting them for a bit, but any continual updates, maybe the scope of work became enormous and completely unreasonable during the development phase, or you adjust and you kind of take a section out, you can put that on the back end and just kind of roll it through. Maybe they want to get to launch quicker. Guess what? Maybe we don't need, this huge feature. Maybe we just need to fine tune this other one a little bit quicker, and we'll put that on the back end. We'll launch it. You can gain traction, and then we'll have updates. There's a million ways to do this, but it's the concept's there. It's just explained in a way that seems Googled.
All right, now let's talk about the 2 cost-effective ways to build and launch your app. The number 1 is MVP, minimum viable product. Start with a limited set of features, your core competency. What is that one feature that provides the maximum value to your users? Start with that and then build slowly. Apps like Amazon, Uber, Facebook, Instagram, they all started as an MVP with a limited set of features, and look at those brands today and the number of features that they have. So start with an MVP.
Look, I'm glad he didn't go any further into those. We're gonna do more reaction videos on other channels that have actually quoted prices for apps like Uber, like whatever, and we're gonna rip those apart too. Now you guys have earned this industry secret. Look, we understand, I think, what he's gotten at, but guess what? Here's el numero uno. No dev team can accurately assess how many hours it will take to build a certain feature to meet a specific business goal. It's just not possible. You can guesstimate, you can have an idea for the smaller ones, but guess what? You get into those complex ones. Look, maybe they've never even attempted a certain type of software solution for a certain business. Maybe it's a new business and they've got to connect 2 types of businesses together. How do you guesstimate for that? Just think about it logically. And the second big one, this hours for pay model is highly flawed, because if there isn't much truth behind the logic, as I just said, guesstimates, it's a race to the bottom for both sides. And I mean that by quality, financial gains. For example, what if a feature you bid on only takes you 20 hours to complete versus the 50 you bid on? Do you lie and pretend to work for 30 more hours so you don't penalize yourself financially for being more effective and efficient and charge for that fully allotted time? Or if you tell them the truth, will they lose confidence in you and your team because you've overbid, when in fact you think you're giving them a smoking hot deal? And again, you lose money for doing your job well. No thanks. Now, I'm not going to get into this heavily, but for both the entrepreneur and the development team, the answer is quite simple: value-based pricing. Look, I'm a dummy, so just go read about it from the pros, like Chris Do, like Jonathan Stark. They've got a much better foundation and explanation than I can give, but in a very condensed hack of an explanation, and from our experience, it's a win-win in my opinion, because it's the most fair, honest relationship between a client and studio. They both know how and where they arrived at that number, versus homeboy blowing numbers out of his ass. And if you think I'm full of shit, well, I may have to agree with you on occasion, but my goal here isn't to bash Arsh. Look, I may or may not even have a beer with the dude, I may question some of his tactics, but our goal here is to educate you on how the team side, meaning the design and engineer teams, logically think about pricing your project. There's no one size fits all, but there are certainly always better ways to improve a process, and this one, in my opinion, is antiquated. So why don't you leave your thoughts below in the comment section. Maybe you've had a horror story from outsourcing work, or just want to give us some love as our channel's growing thanks to you psychos hanging out with me. You know, you could be doing anything else, but you're here, and I love you for it. We've got more of these reaction videos coming, red hot. Oh boy, we're not gonna hold back, guys. Look, you're coming to Dimension Software channel. We're a little edgy, you know, we ride that fine line. We're confident. So if you enjoyed this, let us know, hit that thumbs up. Let's get Arsh's attention, huh? You know? In fact, if he gets butthurt over this, good. We'll challenge him to a code off and see who builds better software. Because I only work with the fucking best. So bring it. Till next time, Team Dimensionites. Toodles.